Please be seated. Now, since every Sunday is Bring Your Own Bible Sunday, get your Bibles out. Open with me to 1 Samuel chapter 1. You'll find it a little hard to follow along today, but try to keep up. The whole of 1 Samuel is the text for today, but that's 28 verses, so I'm going to read some selected verses from there. Starting with verse 9. Once, when they had finished eating and drinking in Shiloh, Hannah stood up. Now Eli the priest was sitting on a chair by the doorpost of the Lord's temple. In bitterness of soul, Hannah wept much and prayed to the Lord. And she made a vow, saying, O Lord Almighty, if you will only look upon your servant's misery and remember me, and not forget your servant, but give her a son, then I will give him to the Lord for all the days of his life, and no razor will ever be used on his head. As she kept on praying to the Lord, Eli observed her mouth. Hannah was praying in her heart, and her lips were moving, but her voice was not heard. Eli thought she was drunk and said to her, How long will you keep on getting drunk? Hannah replied, Do not take your servant for a wicked woman. I have been praying here out of my great anguish and grief. Eli answered, Go in peace, and may the God of Israel grant what you have asked him. So, in the course of time, Hannah conceived and gave birth to a son. She named him Samuel, saying, Because I asked the Lord for him. After he was weaned, she took the boy with her, young as he was, along with a 3-year-old bull, an ephah of flour, and a skin of wine, and brought him to the house of the Lord at Shiloh. When they had slaughtered the bull, they brought the boy to Eli, and she said to him, As surely as you live, my Lord, I am the woman who stood here beside you praying to the Lord. I prayed for this child, and the Lord has granted me what I asked of him. So now I give him to the Lord. For his whole life he will be given over to the Lord. And he worshiped the Lord there. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. A man came home from work one day and found his 3 children playing in the mud outside, still in their pajamas. The door of the house was open, as was the door of his car. And there was no sign of the dog. He went into the house and found an even bigger mess. A lamp had been knocked over. In the living room, the TV was on to the cartoon channel at full blast. In the family room, the floor was covered with clothes and toys. In the kitchen, the sink was full of dishes, breakfast food was spilled all over the countertop, the refrigerator door was wide open, dog food was everywhere. He headed up the stairs, stepping over toys and more piles of clothes, looking for his wife. He was worried that she might be ill or something terrible could have happened. Well, when he got to the top of the stairs, he passed the bathroom door and there was a trickle of water coming out from under the door. He was afraid to open the door, but he did. He looked in there and he saw water everywhere. Towels everywhere. Scummy soap on everything. And you know what? There were miles of toilet paper piled up in the floor. And he did not know that you could get that much toothpaste into a tube, but he knew he surely couldn't get it back in there. Well, he finally got to the bedroom where he found his wife in her pajamas, curled up on the bed, reading a novel. He looked at her with a total bewilderment and said, What happened here today? And she said, You know all those times you come home from work and ask me what in the world I did all day? He said, Yeah. She said, Well, today, I didn't. I think he had a whole new respect for what went on in his wife's life when he was gone after that. When I set out this week to write this sermon, I had, in my entire 20 years of preaching, written exactly one focused Mother's Day sermon. You see, it had stunk so badly that I never tried it again. But this week, I was struck by an inspiration that required me to try one more time to write an honest-to-goodness Mother's Day sermon. So I started out with the story of Hannah. And I started out with the story of Hannah because, well, she's important to us. Samuel was Hannah's first child, and he was late in her life. In fact, as we read, Samuel came to her only because she had prayed for him and vowed to the Lord that she would give her son to the Lord for service for the rest of his life as soon as he was weaned. Now you realize that Samuel would have been probably 6 years old when he was given over to the Lord. Yes, ladies, that means that she probably nursed him for 6 years. In the days before sterilized baby bottles and little rubber nipples and all that stuff, that was all the food a child got for the first 3 to 6 years. Which is also why all the men had several wives. Because if you're going to have enough children to run the farm, you couldn't get to that number having one child every 6 years. So anyway, it was tough on women then. But think about Hannah and Samuel there for a minute. What if Hannah had made that promise to God and then had not kept it? What would we be missing? You see, Hannah's giving Samuel to the Lord is an extremely important part of our faith story because, you see, without Hannah, we wouldn't have Samuel. Without Samuel, we wouldn't have David. Without David, we wouldn't have Mary and Joseph, who were both of the house and line of David. And without Mary and Joseph, we wouldn't have Jesus. Oh, I'm certain that God would have figured out some other way to arrange for salvation for all of us. But whatever that way was, our faith story would have been absolutely different if one woman, one mother, one time did not do what she was supposed to do. Now think about that for a minute. How many people got mothers? Well, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. I think about my mother all the time. She's still with us, thanks be to God. And most of us were raised with our mothers in the house with us. And most of us who got caught at practically everything were caught by our mother because she was around to do the catching. I hope that your mothers were as good as my mother, and that your memories of your mother are as good as my memories of my mother. Now, I know what it means to get caught by your mother. How many of you have heard people say, or have said yourself, my mama sent me out to cut my own hickory switch? How many of you, like me, have gone outside and cut that hickory switch and come in to find Mama say, that's not long enough. You got to go get a better one. Oh, that was not an experience that I wanted to have. Because I knew what was going to happen with that thing when I finally picked one long enough. You know, they say that Jesus wore our stripes and bore our burden. Well, I got to tell you, I bore my own stripes, thank you very much. All up and down, from here to my ankles. I have been striped many times. I suppose maybe I was a slow learner. Before I knew what school was, I knew what Sunday school was. I had more perfect attendance pins than the law should allow. It wasn't my fault, I guarantee you that. According to my mother, there was absolutely one reason for missing Sunday school. You were dead. When I found out what school was, there were only two reasons for missing Sunday school, for regular school. One of them was still, you were dead. And the other one was, you're so sick you think you're about to be dead. Yes, my mother made me go to church. How many of you had mothers that made you go to church? That's right. You know, I know there are parents in this world that don't make their kids go to church anymore, and I don't know what's wrong with them. I know what's wrong with that. We were raised in the faith because our mothers wouldn't take no for an answer when we woke up on Sunday morning and said, I don't want to go. What are you talking about you don't want to go? You think there's options here? You want to eat? You want to sleep in that bed tonight? Well, you get up out of it now, because we're going to church. That's how that was. She made me go to church. She made me go to school. She made me go to the library. And oh my goodness, she made me go to music lessons. But what if she didn't? What if she didn't do all that? Would I be the minister of the gospel that I am today, standing here in your service and the Lord's? Or would I be homeless or in prison? I know just exactly how worthless I am left to my own deserts. If I had a time machine and I could go back and see and change anything, I would not change the life I live in my mother's house, because I am desperately afraid of what I would look like without her. Instead of fading, my love and respect for my mother have grown over the years because, as my son said to me once, and I should probably say this to my mother, now I know why you treated me the way you did. Because I deserved it. That's why. I needed it. I needed that treatment to grow into the person I have become. And I know why she did it. She did it because she loved me. She didn't do it because it felt good for her. She did it because she loved me. I hope you had a mother like that. If you did, I want you to give thanks to God for her today. And if she's still with you, give her thanks before the day is out.